Can your company defend itself against cyber attacks? You'll want to watch this right now on the Leadership Voice. Welcome to the Leadership Voice. I'm your host, Jay Barbuto. Today's show is about defending your company from cyber attacks. Joining us are Jason James, cybersecurity expert and managing partner for Regents and Park, and Quincey Collins, chief security officer for Sheppard, Mullin, Richter, and Hampton. We also have a great leadership lesson being delivered by Professor Sinjini Mitra. We have a lot of great things coming, so let's get things started with our quote of the day. Today's quote comes from Ted Schlein, chairman of Ballistic Ventures and founding CEO of Fortify Software. There are only two different types of companies in the world: those that have been breached and know it, and those that have been breached but don't know it. Our first guest today is Jason James. Jason James is an IT professional with over 30 years of experience in delivering information technology services, including system analysis, implementation, and auditing for business processes and general application controls. As a CISA certified expert, he has worked with companies ranging from startups to Fortune 500 corporations, specializing in controls-based security design and compliance programs like PCI, HIPAA, SOX, and NIST. Notable achievements include acting as on-demand CISO, developing IT policies for AXA, and managing a PMO office for First Guarantee Mortgage. He is currently the managing partner at Regents and Park. Please welcome to the show, Jason James.
Thank you, Jay. I really appreciate you inviting me here.
Thanks for coming on the show to share your thoughts around cybersecurity. Let's get things started. Could you talk about how your career has evolved and how you got excited about cybersecurity?
IT was an industry that I was really interested in. I chose to study IT at school. I moved into IT as soon as I was able to, as a maintenance and installation engineer, which is very rudimentary, basically building PCs back in the late 90s. Then moved into networking and then moved into software development. And that, luckily enough, brought me to the US. When I emigrated to the US in 2003, I realized that compliance and cybersecurity was perhaps more of an industry that I should move into. Sarbanes-Oxley had come around, which is a regulation that required all companies to have IT. And that was a natural progression. And from there, in 2009, I decided to start my own business. And I looked at the industry and I said that cybersecurity and compliance was still the best market to move into.
So let's talk about cyber consulting and compliance. What does that entail?
So my area of cybersecurity is on the management consulting side. What I do is I advise executives, I motivate them to invest in cybersecurity in their organization. To a certain degree, some of that is FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I convince them that if the worst happens, they're not protected because they're not investing. And in some cases, it's based on compliance. Maybe they are transacting with credit cards or medical data, which is the PCI and HIPAA side of your introduction. And that requires them to invest in cybersecurity and security controls. So whatever the motivating factor they need, I then come in and help them understand that. And then I help them implement the necessary cyber controls to protect their organization. Now, the only thing I would say is I don't do hands-on. I don't want necessarily the risk of touching their IT. And there are far more intelligent people than me that can manage IT networks. But as a management consultant, I start that conversation.
So a lot of times you have to help organizations reset their priorities and make sure that they're highlighting certain needs.
Yeah, as I referred to before, Sarbanes-Oxley required organizations to invest in not only IT controls, but in management that represented IT and cybersecurity. They actually had to hire people to understand and implement the necessary cybersecurity controls. And that was something that was new to them. Before, they were business leaders that invested in business, driven requirements. And very little IT leadership existed. Even at the board level and at the audit committee level, they had no IT representation. And compliance has been a big investor in that.
And I would imagine a lot of companies probably try to get by with the bare minimum.
Oh, of course. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a P&L conversation, your profit and loss. And most cybersecurity is considered a loss leader until that time you have a breach. And then it's a very expensive loss leader because you clearly have to pay the penalties associated with a breach, and that is considerable. However, most people don't see that far, and that's where I need to help them understand that the upfront cost is a lot less than the post-breach cost.
So let's talk about some of the common attacks that put organizations and people at risk.
Well, so the most common ones we still deal with right now, email. I mean, we are phishing. If you haven't heard of phishing, it's basically where someone sends an email to all your employees saying, hey, here's a spreadsheet, open this spreadsheet. It's got everyone's payroll in it, and you open it, and it ends up being a virus or malware. Or there's the other example, which has been very prevalent, is working with vendors. And you find out that the vendor doesn't have the same level of security as you. You spend all this money, time and energy investing in your security, and then you hire a vendor who might as well just have a door closed to their organization, and they potentially can introduce threats. There are ransomware, of course, is one that I think a lot of people are still aware of. It's when an organization loses control of their network and their data, and someone ransoms them. So these threats are still very prevalent. They're not going away, and I think they're getting more and more sophisticated.
So as companies are thinking about cybersecurity, thinking about the risks, thinking about the steps they need to be taking, and understanding the real depth of what's taking place, could you talk about some of the latest tricks that hackers are using to infiltrate organizations?
So social media is probably one of the larger attack surfaces. People are very prone to update their social media with information that they shouldn't. So for example, LinkedIn, I'm constantly updating my LinkedIn to represent my new skills at my current employer. Unfortunately, some of those skills may actually define the information, or may actually cover the information for the security products that I'm implementing, or for the language I'm using to program. So I'm basically putting intellectual property into my social media, and then they will use that to advance their attack surfaces. Other versions, of course, are threat hunting. There's 0 day where they're using the vulnerabilities that are coming out in Microsoft and Google and Apple and other operating systems. And the hackers are ahead of you. They're basically taking advantage of the vulnerability before you patch the vulnerability. So the surface continues to advance, and of course they're using AI to increase the sophistication of those attacks.
So what are some of the ways that AI is heightening these risks and maybe advancing the hackability of organizations?
So I think there's 3 areas that I'm very interested in when it comes to AI. Certainly as a hacker, so if you take the Target breach, most people might remember that Target got breached and they lost a lot of credit card information. Someone went onto what we call the dark web, which is the internet, which is, most people shouldn't go to, and bought a piece of software that they used to attack Target. Now you can go to an AI engine, and ask it to create that software for you, to actually invent it for you. And if you attack an organization and it doesn't work, let's say they have a security product that prevents that attack, you can go back to your AI engine and say, please advance it. This is what I saw when it was prevented, and I need you to, to develop a workaround for that prevention. So people are using AI to develop malware and viruses and Trojans. Now, we can also use AI to protect our organization. At the moment, we have what we call best in breed, which is where we buy the best security software products, but they don't talk to each other as well. What I could do is go to a product like Microsoft. They have a product called Copilot. They actually develop a cyber product which will take all of the information from everywhere within your Microsoft 365 environment and produce a natural language response to an attack. So you could say, hey, Copilot, I have this ransomware that I'm experiencing, and Copilot will respond with a potential process for addressing that threat. And lastly, using AI and putting information into AI, you could lose your intellectual property, you could lose your publicly available information or privately available information just by typing it into an AI engine.
So a lot of organizations may be underestimating how much innovation and how much technology hackers are relying on that is improving their ability to compromise things.
Yeah, basically a hacker will now purchase the same security products that you are purchasing, using them in the same way, configuring them in the same design, implementing the same AI engines to replicate your environment based on information that they've ascertained from social media and other mechanisms, and simulate an attack to the point where they're pretty convinced that they can attack your organization, and they have the money, they have the sophistication, they may be a government-sponsored attacker now, and then they will attack your organization. Whereas prior to that, there was a lot of opportunist. It's not mission impossible. It was an opportunist. You would send a piece of malware, or you would use a phishing attack and just send an email to all employees and hope someone would click a link, and that would then gain them access to your network. So the sophistication, the investment, the time and the energy that they have, really the only people that can really defend against that are other nation states such as the US, the FBI, the Secret Service. It's got to a point now where the cost to protect yourself is becoming so high that really you just need to be better than the next person.
So companies in general are not trying as hard to protect themselves as hackers are trying to get in.
I think they try hard. I think it's difficult to invest in the level of sophistication that a hacker can. A hacker commits one ransomware breach and walks away with $10, $15 million worth of crypto. That's a pretty significant investment in their attack processes and their attack tools to attack the next company. And it's a snowball effect. They continue to profit from crime, whereas the individual companies are not profiting from defense.
I want to thank you, Jason, for being on the show and sharing your wisdom. We're going to have a panel here in just a few minutes. We're going to have you and Quincey together, so you'll stick around for that.
Thank you, Jay.
It's now time for a featured segment of the Leadership Voice. It's today's Did You Know? Today's Did You Know comes from Varonis.com. According to Cybersecurity Ventures, the world's largest cybersecurity firm, the cybersecurity unemployment rate is near 0% and is projected to remain there for the foreseeable future. So if you're interested in a career in cybersecurity, this is a great time to be entering the field. It's now time for today's Leadership Countdown. Today's countdown comes from EcronSystems.com. We bring you the 7 industries most at risk of cyber attacks. Number 7, education and research. Number 6, public administration. Number 5, healthcare and pharmaceuticals. Number 4, retail. Number 3, energy and utilities. Number 2, finance and insurance. And the industry most at risk of cyber attacks is manufacturing. Don't go anywhere. We have Quincey Collins in the studio right after a word from the Giles O'Malley Center for Leadership. The Bringing Learning to Work program is our way of connecting the faculty of Cal State Fullerton with the business community of Orange County and Southern California. We have over 72 training programs that are available via distance or face-to-face. And the faculty come to your company and they deliver the training to your employees.
The Bringing Learning to Work program is really fundamentally, it's leadership programming. We do diversity and emotional intelligence training. We partner with Cal State Fullerton because they had subject matter experts in these fields, and we're really fortunate and privileged to be able to do that.
Many companies can't afford training and development personnel, and so this is a great opportunity to leverage Cal State's faculty to help them develop their learning programs.
The leadership of the center and the students allow me to not only bring leadership development to my company, but allow me to interact with some amazing students who have grit, potential, and just amazing futures in front of them, and I get to take part of that. It's a wonderful feeling.
When your organization is ready to develop its talent, reach out to the Center for Leadership and we'll help get you there. Welcome back to the Leadership Voice. Our next guest is Quincey Collins. With over 20 years of combined experience in the information technology and information security field, Quincey Collins brings a multi-dimensional perspective to this conversation. In his current role as the Chief Security Officer for Sheppard, Mullin, Richter, and Hampton LLP, Quincey is responsible for information security, privacy operations, and risk management strategy. Quincey maintains a strong emphasis on efficient security operations, effective tooling, configuration management and process management, and team building. Please welcome to the show, Quincey Collins.
Jay, thank you so much for the warm introduction, and thank you for having me.
It's great to have you on the show, and thank you for coming on and being willing to share your perspective on cybersecurity. A lot of people really need to learn more about this. So, could you tell us a little bit about your career and how it evolved towards information technology and security? How did you get into it?
Absolutely. So, as a very young man in Northern California, I ended up taking a love for information technology and computers. From there, at the age of 17, I ended up joining the United States Air Force, where I was an information technology professional. And you know, in the military in general, what we end up doing is taking a lot of different roles. So what I was able to do is start from fixing fax machines and computers and printers, going all the way through to network operations and information assurance. So I had a lot of different roles in a lot of different places and spaces, and that actually brought me a great groundwork for joining the information security field. So I ended up building that strong base of information technology knowledge and experience in different countries, and then bringing that over back to the United States. So it was quite an interesting ride in my Air Force time for almost 9 years actually. And then I ended up moving over to the contractor consultant route, working directly for the Department of Defense, which was really fun because I ended up doing that in Germany for just short of 5 years, and then coming over back stateside, joining the firm. So it was quite an interesting experience for me, joining the United States Air Force, going to the contractor consultant route, and then coming back to the civilian era with all of those skills I learned from NATO, the Department of Defense, and the United States Air Force.
So if somebody else wants to be a chief security officer, that's all they have to do. It's everything that you just did.
Well, you know, there's a lot of different ways and avenues that one can join the information security field and eventually become an information security officer or chief information security officer. I think it starts with a willingness to learn, and it ends with follow through. You know, one thing that I've noticed with a lot of people and a lot of aspiring information security individuals is that, you know, the ones who make it, those are the ones who follow through. it's quite easy to ask a question, but the difficult part is following up and really finding that pathway. It's like, you know, going upstream in a river. You know, you might go left to this sand berm, might go right, but you've got to keep on paddling. And I think that perseverance and dedication to the field and to the craft is what is really going to take you through.
So I think our viewers would love to have a little bit more information about what a chief security officer is. What is the role of a chief security officer for a large law firm?
Absolutely. So to put it succinctly, it's you are in charge of the strategy that will protect client data and protect the firm's technological and business operations. Because, you know, if you look at it, you know, a law firm, a large law firm, small law firm, any law firm, most companies these days actually run on technology, right? So if that technology fails to work for any reason, and, you know, in the cyber realm, we're talking about ransomware, we're talking about denial of service attacks, we're talking about a lot of different things that could occur. As a chief security officer or chief information security officer, you are charged with protecting the client's data, protecting the firm's data, and preserving individuals' privacy as well.
So in the cybersecurity field, we hear folks talk about offense versus defense in the cybersecurity world. Could you talk a little bit about what that actually means?
Absolutely. So there are different teams that you can be on from an information security standpoint. You have the red team, which is offense, right? These are hackers, both good and bad. A good hacker is an individual who's an ethical hacker. This is somebody who has been paid to attempt to penetrate a network, right? They're paid to hack into a network. A white hat hacker is essentially the person who is paid. A black hat hacker is an individual who is somewhere in a far off land who is attempting to hack for money. So we have different individuals on this red team, whether they're good or whether they're bad. So red team operations will essentially be paid individuals. They're hackers, but then they can also be offensive minded hackers who are trying to bust into networks, steal data, take down systems, and then extort those companies for millions and millions of dollars, and that's how they end up making their money. Now, the blue team, which is defense, is quite an interesting career field in that you are charged with protecting the data, protecting the company, and protecting their business operations. So you would be in charge of information system security technologies. You would be in charge of programs, procedures. You would be in charge of making sure that individuals are well informed, both on the technological side and on the business side, right? It's all about sharing information and implementing your security protocols evenly across your entire business, including your vendors as well. So the blue team is all about defense, all about bringing in all of the best information security technology and professionals that you can afford to protect your business and protect your data.
And so if you're on the blue team, as a chief security officer, you're on the blue team.
Correct.
And your job is to understand the red team so well that you can develop the defense that's needed.
That is correct. So your job is to essentially distill all of the different attack vectors that could impact your business, that could result in some sort of breach, result in some sort of penetration of your environment, and make protections associated with those different vulnerabilities, exploits, those different ways into your network. You want to close those off as best as you can, reducing your risk and increasing your business's margin of safety.
So how is AI affecting security? Is it making your life easier?
Well, AI is right now, from a security application standpoint, is at the very beginning. And what we're seeing is that there's a lot of different technologies that augment and speed up different processes that information security operators are going through on a daily basis. So you're going to have technology that looks at and crunches data and gives you a report really quickly. And then you're also going to have AI tooling and technology that's going to take a look at different alerts and give you recommendations. AI could actually jump into actively performing configuration changes on your behalf. But that's yet another level of autonomy and autonomous nature of information security that we're seeing now with AI and information security tooling. It's very important to note that although we have the ability to automate all of these different actions and have an AI do something on our behalf, we have to understand who is accountable for those decisions if a mistake is made. So that's very important. So we can have the different technologies and tools get set up and configured and make those actions, but someone has to be ultimately responsible for what happens after.
And so with all of these things happening, hackers using AI to find new ways of penetrating, and organizations leveraging AI as part of their own protection, how do you stay ahead in this battle? Like, how do you make sure that you keep your organization safe?
So information technology is built upon systems, people, and configuration. Most of information security and your protections associated with your technology, it's 90% the basics. The 10% is, that special unicorn dust and magic is the advanced implementation of those basics. So let's talk about the 90%. This is patching your systems. This is making sure that your users are trained. This is making sure that your developers are utilizing secure coding methodologies and making sure that you're picking the best technology and configuring that technology appropriately, right? So that's really the 90% of information security. It's the basics. It's the stuff we already know and the things that we already are able to configure. Now, the 10%, that's kind of where the magic happens, right? This is your advanced correlation rules in your SIM, your security incident event management system, your big logging platforms. This is utilizing AI tooling and technology, machine learning, and advanced configuration of the toolings, which goes beyond what the vendors will say, hey, just flip on all of these rules. No, it's not like that. You've got to have specific bespoke rules specific to your environment so that you can protect your business and afford the greatest margin of safety for your business operations that's possible.
So it's never a simple answer.
It's never a simple answer. If you ask any chief security officer or chief information security officer, typically the first words that'll come out of their mouth is, it depends.
And there's no actual end to it, is there? There's no point where you say, all right, we're safe.
We reduce risk. That's what we do. The most secure computer is the one that you unplug and throw out the window, right? But we can't do that because business operations will not support that. So what we end up doing is decreasing the risk to a manageable and appropriate level, transferring the risk, and where we can, we eliminate the risk. So there's different risk reduction methodologies that we can utilize, but at the end of the day, the business has to run. A business that doesn't run doesn't need an information security department and won't have clients or customers, right?
But if a person's going to succeed in this field, they need to understand risk. They need to understand managing risk and reducing risk, and they need to understand the techniques that go into that.
That is correct. So, most users and individuals who are, a part of a law firm, big organization, technology company, what they really need to focus on, the individuals, not the information security folks, is how to spot a phishing email, how to spot when somebody is trying to scam you, how to understand if there's some sort of telephone call that's a little bit strange. They're asking you to do something. It's urgent. These types of things are the precursors to attacks that, we're all in this together. So the more information we share, the more we know, and the more we can actually apply to the environments that we're charged to protect and utilize for our business operations, the better off we will all be.
So if you were talking to a person that was striving to become a chief technology officer or a chief information officer, or maybe they just became, just got promoted into that role, What advice would you give someone, maybe new to that role or seeking that role, that might save them some anguish?
It's complicated, right? Everyone's path is going to be different, but I think the most direct path that an individual can take, it'll start with a mentor. We shouldn't be on this journey. This is a multi-year, multi-decade sometimes journey, and it really helps if someone has a mentor that will be able to orient them in the direction that they need to go. Now, this mentor isn't going to give all of the answers. They're probably going to ask more questions than give answers, and that is where an individual can take that communication and take those nuggets of wisdom and create a career for themselves. What that's going to look like is an individual is going to take a look at their education path. They're going to take a look at their network. They're going to take a look at all of the minute steps that will occur over a career. That mentor is going to guide them in a path. And if an individual reaches out via LinkedIn, via email, via whatever means to a chief information security officer, chief technology officer, or a CISO or a chief security officer, more than likely they're going to respond. And here's why. Most security executives, technology executives want individuals to come in, no matter if they're in high school, they're in college, they're a mid-stage career person looking to pivot. We want more people in the information security field. More often than not, you will get a response. So I would encourage any young person or any person in their journey of switching over to information security to reach out to someone that they know, potentially in their company, maybe outside of their company or outside of their network. But it really pays dividends to reach out and get a mentor.
So if a person wants to succeed in this career, mentoring, finding a mentor can be a big part of that journey. What about if somebody is a CIO, CTO, CSO, and now they want to succeed in their role? What would you tell them?
Once again, your network and mentoring is key. Now, mentoring looks maybe a little bit different when you're looking at if somebody is already in security leadership or technology leadership. They might have multiple mentors for different specific items, right? So it's not going to be just, hey, you're going to have just one person that gives you, that's some wise person that's going to give you all of the answers. You're going to be looking at your network. So your mentors are going to be a much wider group of individuals. I think an early stage person is going to likely have one, maybe two, but someone in security leadership is going to have many mentors for the different facets of their career that they're looking to improve upon and gaps that they're seeking to fill.
So even in a chief role, it's important that we're always learning, we're always reaching out to others that have specific expertise that we can learn from. That process never ends.
It's an iterative process throughout your entire career. Even when you're done and retired, you should probably still be learning. It's good for your brain. It's good for your body to continuously try to do something and improve. The information technology and information security landscape is changing beneath our feet. Earlier we were talking about AI. 10 years ago, the big change was cloud. 5 years ago, the change was machine learning algorithms coming in and changing the game for us a bit with big data. So, in the next 5 years, I think it's AI. I think it's AI agents. I think it's definitely going to be more automation. But we have to continuously learn if we're going to keep pace with what's happening before our eyes.
All right, well, thank you, Quincey, for being on the show. We're going to have Jason come back on with us. We're going to do a little panel discussion in just a few minutes.
Thanks, Jay.
It's now time for our leadership example. Today's leadership example comes from Fortune.com. We bring you the top 5 cybersecurity companies in the U.S. based on market capitalization. Don't go anywhere. We have our leadership lesson coming up after this exciting news about the Giles O'Malley Center for Leadership. Welcome back. It's now time for today's leadership lesson. Today's lesson will be delivered by Professor Sinjini Mitra.
I'm Dr. Sinjini Mitra, and here is today's leadership lesson on the different types of hackers. Hackers are usually classified based on their intent, a target's consent and legality, although the lines between them are often blurry. First, we have white hat hackers. Companies hire these hackers to find and fix security vulnerabilities, allowing them to patch weaknesses before malicious hackers exploit them. On the other hand, black hat hackers exploit vulnerabilities for malicious purposes, such as data theft or destruction in the form of spreading malware and even launching cyber attacks. These are completely unauthorized and illegal, and often are driven by motives like financial gain, personal satisfaction, and even political agendas. Then there are gray hat hackers that operate in the ethical gray area between white and black hat hackers. They infiltrate systems without permission but don't cause harm. Sometimes they report discovered vulnerabilities to help improve security. Next are red hat hackers. They are ethical hackers who use more aggressive tactics than white hat hackers to combat black hat hackers and other cyber criminals to protect systems and networks from malicious attacks. Blue hat hackers are white hat hackers who are employed by an organization. They assess the security of systems, networks, and websites, identifying and fixing vulnerabilities to prevent attacks. They typically work in IT departments of large companies or for cybersecurity agencies offering white hat hacking services. Next, I want to mention green hat hackers or script kiddies. They are inexperienced hackers who lack technical skills and knowledge of technologies and security mechanisms, while their intentions are usually not malicious, but they may cause harm if they choose to. Hacktivists, a term which is a combination of the two words hacker and activist, are hackers who engage in cyber activities with the goal of promoting political or social change. These individuals infiltrate systems to expose perceived injustices like government or corporate misconduct, aiming to hold powerful entities accountable. Though they see their actions as serving the greater good, they often intend to damage their targets' reputations. Finally, state or nation-sponsored hackers work for governments to gather information from other nations, either to enhance national security or launch subversive attacks. A malicious insider or whistleblower is someone who works for an organization and decides to expose wrongdoing from within. In conclusion, hacker roles are fluid, and individuals may shift between them based on motives or circumstances. Understanding these distinctions helps organizations better defend against cyber threats. I'm Sinjini Mitra, and this has been your Leadership Lesson.
Thank you, Professor Mitra, for that insightful leadership lesson. We're back for our leadership panel. Thank you, Quincey. Thank you, Jason, for rejoining us, and let's talk some more cybersecurity.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So the way this works is I have 4 questions. We'll take turns answering each question, but you're both going to answer every question that we ask. So the first question is going to be for you, Jason, and it is, how does one get into the cybersecurity field?
So the basic way I would start off with would be in your universities, and you can start a lot earlier now. IT sophistication in high schools and even in elementary schools is really valuable. You can learn programming, networking, robotics. I have seen so many areas of expertise being shared in the educational route. The second route I would go for is pivoting, is choosing to choose profession. Maybe you were a programmer, maybe you were an IT support person, and you learn the skills necessary to evolve into a cybersecurity compliance person. And lastly, if you're passionate, is actually having a hobby in IT. There's so much IT technology you can take home, develop. You can build your skills that way as well.
What about you, Quincey? How does someone get into this field?
I think it's years and years of dedication and perseverance. It's not giving up, because there are always going to be challenges associated with jumping into a new career field. Getting hired and getting your first job in information security is actually the most difficult thing. So one bit of advice that I would give any information security hopeful is that you have to demonstrate your commitment to the career field. And what that looks like, as Jason was saying, was you've got to take a look at your education, you've got to take a look at your training, joining industry events, but also making sure that you make those connections and contacts, because your network is going to be the most important. And how you get that network is by, for example, going to university, taking certain courses, joining industry groups, different forums. It's all going to help get you to where you want to get to go.
All right, so our second question is, how has cybersecurity changed through the years? And so, Quincey, you'll answer that first.
Absolutely. So cybersecurity has evolved quite massively over the last 20 years. 20 years ago, there wasn't very much with regard to information security. We had a lot of SIM systems that were quite manual, called SNORT. We had different endpoint detection systems, which were known as antivirus solutions. Now, today, they're much more advanced. So what we've seen in the industry is that we've had a very manual and very on-premise, meaning on your internal network, for systems and protections and everything's manual. Someone actually has to write these rules manually, and now everything is automated, everything is dynamic. The stakes have never actually been higher. So what we've seen is that with the proliferation of ransomware, data extortion, and all of these bad things that can happen to organizations, the service providers and software providers and consultants have all essentially come together to provide services that increase the amount of protection in a very dynamic and fast way, because speed is safety in cybersecurity.
So I think we can go back a few years and say the internet changed things drastically. Prior to that, we had a defendable line. Basically, it may have been the walls of your building. It could have been, within at least your city where you were connecting buildings together. So that made a big change. Now all of a sudden we are using technology that is world accessible. Then we could look at things that happened more recently, such as cloud and COVID. I mean, it sounds like they're totally different things, but within COVID, we put all our employees at home, and within cloud, we put all our data in potentially other areas and out of our control, in other organizations' control. So we basically moved data and people outside of our buildings and lost control. So that was a major change in the way that security worked.
So things keep changing. So what is the future likely going to hold for us? We'll have Jason answer that first.
We should, at some point in the future, be able to rely on tools to take responsibility, not just be a tool, but to take responsibility for threat detection and threat response. There will always be a need for a human being, because this is an interpretive profession. There's a lot of interpretive understanding required, but we should develop our tools to be more than a tool and be more of a response product.
What about you, Quincey? What do you see as the future hold?
I think we're going to see big data take over and have AI become an overlay to that big data. And essentially what we're going to see is information security tools and technologies becoming decision support systems for the operators that are utilizing them. So the information security operators are going to have more data at their fingertips, and it's going to be curated. They're going to be able to make faster decisions. They're going to be able to have more informed decisions based on the tooling that's coming out. Now, AI is still new, right? So we're going to have to, understand, who's going to be accountable if mistakes are made, and that's typically the CISOs of the world, chief information officers, and the like, the executives out there. But we're going to see the speed of decision making increase tenfold over the next few years.
So it's now time for our final word. This is a chance for each of you to share your final piece of wisdom or final piece of advice for our viewers. So you'll each have a chance to do this, and we're going to start with Quincey for your final word.
So information security and risk management is an iterative process. You have to start here and end up in a more secure state or a decreased risk state. Rome was not built in a day. You've got to put people in a position to where they can affect change in your organization from an information security standpoint and a risk management standpoint. Give them the tools, the budget, and give them the personnel required in order to decrease risk and essentially increase the safety and resiliency of any business operation or business environment. It's very important to take a marathon approach rather than a short sprint approach directly after something bad happens. So what we're talking about here is becoming proactive, setting long-term goals and achieving those goals through small, incremental quality gates, if you will.
And I want to expand on what Quincey said earlier on about mentoring. I think communication is a skill that everyone in IT needs to learn. Whether you're trying to pivot into security and you're going through the interview process and trying to win hearts and minds and get hired, or whether you're an executive and you're trying to convince the rest of your executive to invest in cybersecurity, communication skill is not a natural skill for a lot of IT people. It ends up being more of a something you need to learn during your career, and I think more people need to invest in the communication skills.
And there you have our final word. I want to thank you, Jason and Quincey, for joining us on today's show, for our interviews, as well as for the panel, and for sharing your insights into cybersecurity.
Thanks, Jay. Thank you.
If you have a question or need advice, connect with us by email, leadership@fullerton.edu, or on Instagram @CSUF-CFL. Thank you for tuning in to today's show, where we talked about the latest techniques being used by hackers to breach companies' security and what your company can do to protect itself. Thanks to our featured guests, Jason James and Quincey Collins, for sharing your expertise on this important topic. A special thanks to Professor Sinjini Mitra for delivering our leadership lesson. Join us each episode of The Leadership Voice, where leaders from all industries join to share insights and best practices to inform your leadership decisions. I'm Jay Barbuto here at the Giles O'Malley Center for Leadership at Cal State Fullerton, and we'll see you next time right here on The Leadership Voice.